Hey everyone, my name is Emma. I am a Sharks Abroad peer advisor at NSU, and this is a presentation about my experience traveling abroad to Poland, Hungary, Serbia, and Bosnia as a part of a faculty-led travel study program that I took during my spring break of 2020. But before I jump into telling you about my trip, just a bit about me. I am a senior at NSU. I'm a double major in political science and international studies. I'm a part of the Honors College, and I also have a minor in Spanish. I'm a captain of the NSU mock trial team. I'm on the e-board for both the Political Science Honor Society and the Foreign Language Honor Society, and I also work for the current NSU student-run newspaper, and my most recent involvement is with the Sharks Abroad office. I'm really excited to be a Sharks Abroad peer advisor and be able to help all of you guys create an experience like this. So one of the big questions that you should ask yourself when you're deciding to study abroad is why? And my why had always been that studying abroad was something that I'd always wanted to do. My study abroad experience really began my freshman year. I decided to join the mock trial team at NSU, and the coach of the mock trial team also happened to be the professor who led the travel study course that I ended up taking. I had heard from both him and a lot of the other students on the team who had been on the trip on previous years that it was absolutely life-changing, and they said nothing but amazing things about the trip. So I knew that when the class was offered again, I definitely wanted to take it. Although the professor who led the class has now sadly left NSU, the course used to be offered every other year, so my sophomore year, I signed up for the class and I started getting ready for the trip. The great thing about NSU and studying abroad is that there's tons of different ways that you can study abroad. From traditional semester or year-long programs to internships or even research abroad. But I had really always seen myself doing a traditional study abroad, but when I had this opportunity and looked into the faculty-led travel program, there was a lot of things that I really loved about it. And one thing that I really enjoyed about participating in a faculty-led travel study experience was the structure that it provided, because it was a part of a class. And in my case, it was a class about genocide in the 20th century, which basically covered from the Holocaust to the Bosnian genocide to the Syrian genocide that's happening currently. And it really covered a lot of topics that I was interested in, but also had the added component of being able to go on a trip. Because we were going with a faculty member who had, led the trip in the past, we always really had somebody with us who knew a little bit about the places that we were traveling, knew the places that we were going, places to eat, and that sort of thing. And the professor that we went with also had a lot of friends and connections in the various countries that we were in. So we were able to meet a lot of really amazing people that we probably wouldn't have otherwise had the opportunity to meet. All right, so a little bit about my trip. I am going to try to give you the abridged version because, like most study abroad students, I could definitely talk for years about how incredible my experience was. I'm sure if you ever meet me or come into our office, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. But the first stop that we made was in Poland. So we had a long day of flying. We left Fort Lauderdale, had connecting flights in Detroit and in Amsterdam, but we finally landed in Krakow. Krakow was absolutely stunning. We spent a lot of our first day there just kind of exploring the old town, getting settled into our hotel, changing our currency, that sort of thing. But we were there for a few days, so we took walking tours of the old town. We went down to the Jewish quarter and saw the original ghetto walls that you can see in that middle picture. We also visited the famous Schindler Museum that you might know of from the movie. We visited a salt mine, and we also spent an entire day touring Auschwitz I and Auschwitz-Birkenau. There were a lot of places on the trip that I was apprehensive about visiting because of the horrors that took place. In a class about genocide, a lot of the places that we visited weren't exactly lighthearted. And I was really, really apprehensive about going to Auschwitz because I wasn't sure how I would react. The entire time I was there, I couldn't bring myself to take any pictures. The only one that I did take was on the bottom left-hand corner that you can see, and it's a massive book that takes up an entire room with the names of all of the victims from the death camp at Auschwitz. And it was really something that I don't think anything can prepare you for. Walking around Auschwitz, being where millions of people were murdered, is something that you can read about and you can see pictures and you can read memoirs, but nothing compares to really being there in person. And so even though it was, a really somber day and really, really hard emotionally to visit, it was something that I think that was so valuable, and I really, really recommend everybody visiting at least once in their life. But after Krakow, we packed up all of our stuff again and hit the road and drove through Poland, Slovakia, and eventually got to Hungary. Even though we were only in Hungary for one night, it was definitely worth it. We stayed in Budapest in a hotel and spent pretty much the night walking around the city, seeing all the beautiful architecture. And then we also took a walking tour at night, and the city is all lit up. It's right on the banks of the Danube River, so we got to walk across all the bridges at night and see the city all lit up. It was absolutely beautiful, and enjoy all of the food and drinks that the city had to offer. One of the things that I really like about the faculty-led travel study program is that a lot of the times leaving a new country or leaving the US to go to a new country is something that students are really apprehensive about. But in a faculty-led setting, not only did I have a professor that I really, really trusted, but I also got to, connect and travel with my peers. So a lot of the people in the class were people that I had known from other classes or through mock trial, but a lot of them were new people that I got to meet and really connect with during this trip, which was a really valuable experience. The next stop we made was in Serbia. We stayed in Belgrade, and we pretty much got rained on the entire time we were there. You can see this is from one of our walking tours. But we ate lots of traditional Serbian food, and we drank lots of rakia, which is a traditional Serbian alcoholic drink, and really still got to, get to know each other and had a really fun time, even though it was raining. One of the really interesting things that we got to experience in Belgrade was just seeing that differing viewpoints. So in the Bosnian genocide, the Serbian government perpetrated the genocide against the Bosnian Muslim people of Bosnia. And so it was really interesting to see what the country who perpetrated the genocide had to say about the acts and the atrocities that it had committed. And even though, I think a lot of us disagreed with the general sentiment that we felt in Serbia, it was a perspective that I don't think that we would have had we not visited Serbia, and I think that that was really valuable. After Serbia, we drove through to Bosnia, and we spent the remainder of our trip staying in Sarajevo. One of the main books that we had read as a part of the class before we went on the trip was written by a man who spent time in Sarajevo during the siege, during the Bosnian genocide, providing humanitarian aid. And so, for me at least, Sarajevo was where I really felt connected to the people and to the stories that we heard. One of the coolest things I think about being in Sarajevo was getting to sit down with the mothers of Srebrenica, who were survivors of the massacre at Srebrenica. And in the picture that you can see on the right, we were in this tiny little room all packed together, and they served us coffee, and they didn't speak our language and we didn't speak theirs, so there was someone there who was interpreting. But what I found so interesting was that as they told their stories and they told us about the horrors that they had seen and how it had affected them and how they'd moved on with their lives and everything like that, you could see the raw emotion and you could empathize with them. And I think it was so telling of what you experience when you travel, is that there's something so human about feeling emotions and being able to empathize with others that you don't even need to know the same language. Before they even translated what those women were saying to us, you could feel what they were feeling. And that was such a cool experience. And I think that's probably one of my biggest takeaways from the trip, was just how we can all relate to each other despite language barriers, despite cultural barriers, and just connect with each other. While we were in Sarajevo, we also got to visit the Olympic bobsled course up in the mountains, which was so cool. And a lot of the people were from Florida, so they'd never really seen snow. So they were pretty excited about that. And we also got to walk around the cute old town and do all of our shopping and eating and have drinks, and it was a really, really good time. Sarajevo was our last stop, so unfortunately, after Sarajevo, we flew home. We landed back in Fort Lauderdale, and 3 days after we got back, President Hanbury sent out an email to the NSU students saying that everything was going to go online and that we were all going to be going home because of COVID. I remember sitting on the plane there and back, but mostly on the way back, and some people were wearing masks and we weren't really sure if it was a big deal, if we should all be concerned, but we got back and I could not be more thankful for the timing that allowed me to still go on this trip and come back safe. None of us got COVID, but just really, really thankful that I was able to have this before everything shut down and before everything got launched into chaos. So before I bore you with too many of my study abroad stories, I'm going to stop, but I really, really encourage you to come to one of our information sessions and to set up a meeting with one of our Sharks Abroad peer advisors, either myself, with Paulina, or anyone else in our office, to talk about your next step. And the amazing thing about study abroad at NSU is that your next step could be anywhere. We have programs across the globe in every single continent, and there's something for everybody, whether it's you want to do a full semester or you want to do research abroad. There really is something that fits everybody's schedule, everybody's budget. So come in and talk to us, because we are just as excited to get you abroad as you are to go abroad. If you ever have any questions or comments or concerns, feel free to reach out to our office. We really hope to see you guys in there soon, and we really hope to see you guys abroad. Thanks.